So, Jai Gurudev Prasanna Bhaiya.
Jai Gurudev.
So we have Prasanna Prabhu Bhaiya with us today, and Prasanna Prabhu Bhaiya is associated with Art of Living since 1997. Since 2000, he has been Art of Living traveling teacher. He has traveled, taught courses. Now he is VVKI chairman, Vyakti Vikas Kendra India chairman. And before that, we all know him, the way he took Ayurveda, Sri Ayurveda to a bigger heights. He was also involved with Publication Trust for quite a long time. I remember one incident when Prasanna Prabhuji used to sit whole day in the WCF Delhi camp under a tent, and everybody used to go to him with different problems, and he used to troubleshoot all the problems and making everybody feel that their problems, their issues are heard, and he's providing them solutions. So Prasanna Prabhuji,
you have to ask those people. Maybe I multiplied their problems also. You never know.
Yeah, I'm just saying on the feeling level, they should feel that they are heard, and who knows whether the problem got sorted. But that was a big support, you sitting in the ground and supporting everybody. So Prasanna Prabhuji, my first question to you, how can we know a little bit about your background before Art of Living?
Yeah, I used to be in the television business. I used to work for a company which used to sell television programs, used to sell ads. For programs like Dekh by Dekh, Zaban Sambhal Ke. We used to do Bold and the Beautiful, Santa Barbara. I don't know whether you've heard of it. It is like mere bachpan mein. And then we used to do Miss World, Miss Universe, all of these television programs. And all of these programs, if you see, have ads inside. So my job is to make sure that I get ads for each of these programs. This is what I did for the longest. Then in the process of doing this, I started working for Mrs. Jaya Bachchan. I was part of the formation of Amitabh Bachchan Corporation Limited. Yeah, and that then became the huge conglomerate that it was. Then I was into television. So this is what I did before I got into the Art of Living. And in this process, in fact, I used to do a lot of work with Sudarshan in Delhi. So that's where I used to be based in those days.
So and how you got introduced to from this outward paparazzi world? How you got introduced to inner beauty?
No, there is a very strange story. I used to go to Doordarshan to do a lot of work, to get my work done. And there was this DDG, it's called Deputy Director General. And a lot of my work used to be with him. And he had a secretary. And he used to see me fretting, fuming. I used to be like a live wire. People would say, ki, agar koi mujhe keh de ki, this is not possible. I would say, how the hell is it not possible? It has to happen. So I was like a live wire, full of energy. And my lifestyle also was a little odd. I used to smoke 60 cigarettes a day. That was my lifestyle. And he used to see me and he used to say like, this guy is going to kick the bucket soon, man. He has to settle down. And he was totally into Art of Living. And then he said, do the Art of Living, do the Art of Living. And I used to keep telling him, come on, yeah, get off my back. I don't want to do all this Art of Living. I'm here to do a job. Let me just get it done with. Then what happened, because he really used to like me, and because he somehow wanted me to do the program, because he knew I think it'll help me, he said, unless you do the program, I'll not give you an appointment with my boss. And for me, that was everything at that point in time. I needed to work with his boss. So just to please him, I went and did the first Art of Living program. Yeah, so that's how I actually got into Art of Living. I was actually blackmailed into it.
Oh, I never thought that, you had all that life now.
Oh, I'm not telling you half the things, man.
Okay, I hope not everybody gets inspired by the previous life. The current life is more exciting and inspiring, it seems.
The current life becomes more relevant because of the past,
Yes,
if I was always a sadhu, if I was always a saint, then, it's just but the drastic change that I had in my life, from what it was to what it is today, it's amazing.
So, having that kind of personality, when you did Sudarshan Kriya for the first time, you did your first course, how did you feel? What was your experience?
It was good. But one other thing I forgot to tell you, in the midst of all of this lifestyle that I was leading, I had, at the age of about 17 or something, I diagnosed with very high blood pressure. I was in Bombay one of those days, and I was on a bus and I fell off the bus because I fainted. So everybody wondered what's going on. People picked me up. I somehow came home. Then we went to the doc. He checked my blood pressure. It was some 200 and some weird number, 250 by 120 or some weird number. And the doctor said that you should be in a coma. I don't know how you're even normal. And that was when all of this was happening. And of course, I carried that with me, and in Delhi, the fretting, the fuming, the lifestyle that I had. And when I first did the Sudarshan Kriya, when I breathed the Sudarshan Kriya for the first time, which is the first day and the second day, the two long ones, the next day, I checked my blood pressure. It was 120/80. And that was the first time I had seen a 120/80 in the longest. So that was good. But other than that, it was okay. It's no great shakes, but it was good. My blood pressure became normal. And by the way, just before the program, they had done all possible tests on me. So they had done something called the aortogram, the stress test, some names that I don't even know. Aortogram is, what? They pump some iodine into your, the tube that goes into the kidney. They thought that probably there is some congestion because of which this blood pressure is rising, because there was no other reason. At the end of all of those tests, they said it's hereditary and left it at that. And when I did the Sudarshan Kriya for the first time, it became 120/80. And that was when I first time understood what is being normal in terms of blood pressure.
Even I can relate to it. When I did my first course, I was diagnosed with primary blood pressure, and I was told it's your hereditary. But then I did Sudarshan Kriya, and it's normal since then. Absolutely. So there is some magic in that Sudarshan Kriya for sure.
Yeah, I tell you, man.
What helped you to stay glued to this movement?
Only Guruji. So what actually happened is after this program, there was this one young kid. I still remember she was wearing a red dress, and her name is Khushbu Behel. She's our teacher's daughter. She's now, I think, in the UK or somewhere. And we were all going to do the advanced. Somehow somebody came and told me, do the advanced course. I had no clue what I was doing. I told you where I came from, right? My entire frame of mind was like, I'm doing this for this friend of mine called Sanjay Dhawan. He's in fact also a teacher now, who's that DDG secretary. I was doing it only for him, only because I wanted an appointment with the DDG, not for the love of anything for that matter, not even for my health. Because I thought health to aise hi hota hai, yaar. I mean, how can it be any better or worse? This is how everybody lives. This is where I used to come from. So when it became normal, somebody came and told me we should go to Rishikesh and do the advanced course. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, kahan hai yaar, ye sab mein phas rahe ho. And I'm registering as I think that, as I'm thinking that, I'm registering. And then 2 days from I think 2 or 3 days from the time we did the first basic course, it was called in those days, we were on a bus to go to Rishikesh, and I met Guruji there for the first time. And I think that's the only thing that's still kept me here. So, I mean, the Sudarshan Kriya is awesome. It's great. It's the best thing. Everybody must do it. But it is the Guru that, like you asked me, what is it that has kept you in the movement? It's only Guruji.
And how was that first meeting, Bhaiya?
Something else, yeah. It was Rishikesh, and it's very nostalgic. Every time I talk about Rishikesh, it's something else. It's that the Kali Kamli Wali, the other side of, we have our Ashram this side now, on the other side. So there, Kali Kamli. That used to be beautiful. It was 1-2 campuses, and when it used to overflow, we used to go to the third campus. And so in those days, we sat in the bus, we drove, went all the way there to Rishikesh, and then the advanced course began. Everybody's talking about silence, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then a couple of days of the advanced course went by. So in those days, it was the second or the third day, and in those days, all those people who were around and have visited the Kali Kamli Wali, there used to be a staircase that used to go up like that, spiral one, and then there used to be Guruji's kutir there. And it was connected to the main hall, and everybody said Guruji and meeting and all that, and I stood in line, and it is unfathomable. It's unbelievable. So every one step that I took, I kept feeling weaker and weaker and weaker. My feet were trembling, and I'm thinking in my head, what's going on, man? You're a normal guy. Is my blood pressure again back up high, or what is it? Because my feet were trembling, and every step that I moved closer and higher and higher and higher and closer to Guruji's room, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then ultimately, when we went into the room, there was this very small room, about 20-30 people, and it was like khacha khach bhara, like a Bombay train, And somehow I just went and sat, and I happened to sit in Vajrasan. I don't know why, because I think there was not enough space. And my feet were killing me, but I just couldn't move. Then I'm there in front of him, but he's meeting everybody in that room, and everybody is cleared out, and the last person is me. And then I go to him, and I put my head on his lap, and he says, "Aa gaye tum?" And I start howling and weeping like a baby. And it was the most embarrassing moment of my life. There was so lot of people around me, and I'm crying and crying. And I think it would have been at that point in time, it felt like a fleeting moment, but it would have been at least 20 odd minutes that I kept crying in his lap. And he kept, while I was crying, he kept tapping me, patting me, and he kept telling me, "Aur kaun hai ghar pe tumhare," the normal routine. So, क्या करते हो, क्या responsibility है, किधर है, कौन है, all of that happened. And by the time I lifted my head, and it later on when I checked the watch, I got it was about 20 odd minutes. And when I just got up, I've never felt so light like a feather. I was like literally floating. And then I look up, and he looks at me, and he gives me one big hug, and he says, "Bangalore out, teacher bano." And I'm like, "Kya teacher bano yaar? Pagal hai kya?" I mean, there are two parallel dialogues going on. One is something that I'm talking to myself, and something that is happening which I'm observing and feeling like an idiot, literally like an idiot, because I'm a very practical. Even today, I'm a very practical person. I doesn't mean that I'm like some atheist and I have no bhav around. I have a lot of bhav, but my bhav is very internal. I'm not a very outwardly expressive person, and all of this thing is going on, me crying, howling, and people are watching me, and people are thinking, "Oh, you're so lucky, he told you to become a teacher." I'm like, "Are you crazy? I got a business to attend to, man. I can't become a teacher. I don't want to do this." I just get up from there and I move out. But that moment I cannot forget. And many years ago, and in fact that point in time I felt, however, my mind was telling me something else, but what I felt inside was, this is why I have come this time. And many years ago, Guruji was talking about, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is some shloka. I'm not good at it. You can ask Bridget or someone. There is some shloka which says that when you are in that moment, you feel that connection. Feel that connection and you feel that you belong to that. That not that person, but that knowledge, that whole vastness, that whole infinity. That feeling that, of course, Guruji said that about the Bhagavad Gita only now, recently, about a couple of years ago. But that feeling, and I related it to that moment, the first time that I saw him, and I just went crazy. But what a beautiful moment. So yeah, this is how I met Guruji for the first time.
All the teachers have many beautiful stories to tell about Rishikesh. You must be, after that also, for many years.
The most amazing. I mean, that is the closest. I mean, Bangalore Ashram is awesome. Because the next time I met Guruji was in the Bangalore Ashram. But Rishikesh is something else, because in those days, relatively, Guruji would be more free. We would walk by Gangaji. We would sit by the lakeside. And the Narad Bhakti Sutra happened, the long ago, the one that happened in Hindi happened on the banks of Ganges. Of course, I was there. I was, in fact, running around shooting it also. So Narad Bhakti Sutra happened there. And then we would go a little further and sit there and meditate and go take a dip in the Ganges, and Rishikesh was, I mean, for me, it's special. I still remember, and then we used to keep going back to Rishikesh. This was the first time, but I would keep going back to Rishikesh. Kali Kamli ji, that place happened for quite a while at that point. I still remember Guruji used to be very busy, and there is this very dear friend of mine called Dinesh Nair. We used to hang out a lot in those days. He's now in South Africa. And Guruji every once in a while would say to Dinesh or to me, he says, Guru's great escape. He would just do some indication, and then what it meant was that we would go and get the car ready. I used to have this very small little Zen, green color Maruti Zen, and I would go park it, and then Guruji would somehow escape through all of that, come and sit in the car, and then we would drive into the forests of Rishikesh, go up the ghats and from the back, So we used to call it GG, Guru's Great Escape. So the minute Dinesh would say something like that to me, I would have had to go align the car, and then he would come, then sit. I still remember one of those instances when he came, he sat into the car, he says, "Kya music hai bhai tumhare paas?" And there was a cassette, in those days there were cassettes. There's a cassette called Mountains or something by Zakir Hussain. And then he put it in, and the music played, and our man was sitting in the front seat next to me and dancing. Well, literally not like swaying, but sitting in a car seat while it's moving and dancing. I mean, what a blast. Dinesh and I are at the back. I'm driving. Guruji is next to me. We are having a blast. And we go drive. And then we go into all these mountains. And then we are saying, there may be animals. And suddenly a porcupine came. Suddenly there's a peacock. Then Guruji said, you want to see more animals? Dinesh said, Dinesh said, और भी तो animals होंगे Guruji. So he says, और देखना है? नहीं, रहने दो, अभी तो सब सो रहे होंगे. So, and we would dance and then drive, because he had to go and meet one Swamiji, very serious Swamiji. Mm-hmm. And we drove, we parked, and then Swamiji in front. And our man, after all that, having fun with us, suddenly got off the car and he's all straight and something, Om Namo Narayana Swamiji, and we are all in splits and this man is back. So the beauty of this man not being stuck to one role or not being stuck to one thing or the way to be or not to be, the fluidity. I mean, now when you think back at it, it's amazing. In those days, we used to just have fun. No? So he's never stuck to one role. Every role that he plays perfectly. When he's with the devotees on top, before the Guru's great escape, he'd given them 110%. When he would come out and sit in the car, he would give us 100%. When the music plays, he'll give that music 100% and dance away to glory. And then when he gets off the car and meets the Swamiji, he's completely perfect. So the ability to play different roles to perfection and not letting one role merge into the other and create a mess. You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense?
Yes. Yes.
So that's the kind of guy. Is the beauty that he exudes and the presence that he brings with him. It's unbelievable. Yeah, so we've had loads and loads of fun with Guruji in Rishikesh. Very dear.
Ganga dips and walking on the river. And disappearing in the forest.
Unbelievable. In fact, while I'm saying it to you, I'm like feeling so good about it. Because what happens, we get so stuck in our day-to-day work and all of that. And, this is so good that I'm having a chat that I'm, reminiscing. It's very nice.
Bhaiya, you said that after your first meeting to Gurudev in Rishikesh, after meeting for the first time Gurudev in Rishikesh, you came back to Delhi, no? You were in Delhi?
Yeah, I was in Delhi in those days, yeah. So I used to run a business where I used to do Miss World and Miss Universe. So when Sushmita Sen won, Yukta Mukhi won, Diana Hayden won, all of these I was doing in those days, and I thought I was very busy, by the way. Yeah, and he said, "Come to Bangalore." I'm like, "Yaar, kahan se Bangalore jayenge yaar? Itna dur matlab hi nahi hai. Ye nahi hai, wo nahi hai." And guess what? I'm on a flight again to Bangalore.
So how was it when you visited Ashram for the first time? 98, 99, Ashram was not very well constructed. So how was that?
It was so nice. It only this side, right now where the Vikas Kendra office is, which is where I'm sitting, by the way, right now. This interview I'm doing there. This is where I came for the first time for registration. And Prasoon Bhaiya was sitting here, and there was to be, I remember, a big table here. And he asked me, "Ha, kaun?" I said, "Prasanna, blah, blah, blah." "Ha, tumhara book." Yahi par ek room hai, thoda sa hi dur hai. It was the Lakeside Dom, Lakeside Round Kutir, not Dom, Lakeside Round Kutir. थोड़ा सा यहीं पर है, तो अपना बैग लेके आप जाओ. I'm like, होगा यार यहीं पे. And then I take my bag, and in those days I used to, travel very heavy because for every day 2 sets of clothes, no change, no washing. Obviously, those kind of. So I had a huge bag, and I take it on my head, and I walk, and I walk, and I walk. And I asked this guy, "Bhai, kidhar hai?" Ab idhar hi to hai bagal mein karke. We would have walked at least for 20-25 minutes. And by the way, in those days, this whole place was like really ubad khawad. It would go down and suddenly up and down. And you know where Lakeside is? Right now, it's the premium place because you can actually see Guruji's Devi Kutir. But in those days, it was, the furthest away from all action. Chalte, ultimately I reached the kutir. I was like, "Prasoon, तेरे को मैं देख लूंगा." I didn't even forward me. अगर पहले ही बोल देता तो टैक्सी करके जाते. नहीं बोला यहीं पे करते हम लोग रूम में जाके पहुंचे. That is the first time I came, and then I did the although I didn't come for TTC because I had to have done 2 advanced courses. ऐसा कुछ तो rule था. Yes. So I did an advanced course, and it was great. But then, of course, you know what? All the courses of the Art of Living are awesome. But I personally feel that it is only a reason for us to connect with Guruji. I mean, ultimately it's Guruji. I still remember one day I told Guruji कि ये ज्ञान व्यान के चक्कर में तो आया नहीं था गुरुजी, मैं तो सिर्फ आपके लिए आया था. तो इस बात तो सही है, जब तुम मेरे प्रेजेंस में रहते हो तो क्या होता है. तो I said, when I'm in your presence, it's the whole being is completely different, right? He's saying that is knowledge. For me, that was a big revelation. He's saying knowledge is not the words that we speak. Knowledge is not, live in the present moment. वो एक knowledge point हो सकता है, but that is not knowledge. The state that you are in my presence, in his presence, in Guruji's presence, that state is knowledge. तो उस state में कुछ भी ग्रहण कर सकते हो, कुछ भी imbibe कर सकते. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yes.
No, the knowledge is not the words. We get so stuck in the words, no? But it's the presence. So that day, he was doing some program, and I was telling him, यार ये गुरुजी ये ज्ञान व्यान के चक्कर में तो हम आए नहीं थे, हम तो सिर्फ आपके चक्कर में आए थे. But yeah, that is what is knowledge. So art of living के सारे courses are, according to, for me at least, from my perspective, may not be everybody's. For me, it is only a reason to be with Guruji, to connect with Guruji, including your TTCs and everything pretty much else.
Yeah. भैया एक बार गुरुदेव और एक मुनि जी थे, तो उनकी चर्चा सुनने का मुझे मौका मिला था. गुरुदेव उनको लास्ट में यही कह रहे थे कि बातों में हम ज्यादा विश्वास नहीं करते, बातों से कॉन्सेप्ट बनती है. हमारा विश्वास है कि हमारे होने से प्रेम और ज्ञान का उदय होता है.
Absolutely. And that is what he broke in my head. He said, that is knowledge. ये जो, see, it is, we all come with such preconceived notions, ना. हम लोगों को तो सब पता है ना, we all know all and end alls, ना. But when he breaks that, very nicely, very lightly, with a few words, not some, कोई drama नहीं था उसमें. It's a very simple thing he said. You know how Guruji is, right? He just says it and he walks away. So very simple, but the way he broke down some concepts, ki the words we speak is not knowledge, the presence. And that is why he says, you teach not through words, through presence. You know, he keeps saying that in all TTCs, he keeps saying that. When you walk into a room, you bring with you some presence. That is what people may or may not connect to. I'm not saying you will, but they may not also connect to that presence only. So it's all about the presence. So this is, that day, the way it came, that knowledge was unbelievable. So being in his presence itself is knowledge.
So then first meeting Gurudev in ashram, did he show you around the ashram or how was it?